Hey, thanks for joining us today for this Week in Jacksonville Business Edition. And this is pretty cool. So we're talking to Shannon Denton of Wripple. And the focus here is, yeah, it's economy, but really it's about freelance work. And Shannon, why don't we dive into this? Is this the same as the gig economy? Is freelance work different? Is it my full-time gig, but I'm a 1099 employee? How would you describe this whole thing?
Yeah, Ken, first of all, thanks for having me. Yeah, I think the headline is, a lot of people, they talk about the gig economy, which was about Uber drivers, maybe Door Dashers, consumers that found work where they could, very flexible work options where they could make extra money. I think the freelance economy, though, is really more white collar. This is about white collar professionals that are finding additional opportunities in corporate America to work for major companies. And so this could be what's known in the industry as a side hustle, where you're kind of working full time, but making extra money by maybe copywriting or doing some extra design work for big companies, or it could be a full-time freelance gig. But so that's what the freelance economy really is. It's about white collar professionals finding work as independent free agents in the open market.
Shannon, how does this definition go? Is this align with my side hustle, or is this a different kind of thing when we're talking about the differences between gig economy and freelance work?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. A side hustle would be where I'm working full time and I do some work on the side to earn extra money. There are people that are full-time freelancers, so they're full-time free agents. So all they do is seek out on-demand work on a project basis. So they don't even have a full-time job with a big company. So there are full-time freelancers and then there are side hustlers. And we work with both types of people in the freelance economy.
So yeah, tell me a little bit about your business and what this demand, if the demand has changed on the freelance side versus what we saw years ago.
Yeah, so first of all, the 1/3 of the U.S. workforce now identifies themselves as, quote, an independent worker, meaning they're looking for either side gigs or they're full-time freelancers. So that's compared to about 1/4 about 5 to 6 years ago. So there's been huge growth. And so my company, Ripple, we're what's called a talent marketplace or a talent platform. So we connect companies to freelancers. So we work with big companies such as Delta Airlines, AT&T, and many others, and basically provide a technology platform. They can post a project or a job, and freelancers in the market will bid on it, and then they can kind of interview and select the best freelancer that they're matched with based upon the specific job requirements. So we're kind of playing a connector where we're actually connecting companies to these freelancers and finding the freelancers assignments that they can work on. And those assignments could be a day, a week, 6 months, a year. And so they vary in length. They vary in length and also in just terms of monetary opportunity, how much people get paid.
Let's talk, I guess, some of the pluses and minuses. Let's talk. What's the advantage for a business going that path where say, yeah, I'm going to hire a freelancer?
Yeah, huge advantage for a business. Let's just talk about fun thing to talk about cost savings. So instead of hiring an employee, training them, paying for their benefits, you can really go out and get a freelancer and knock out a project, get it done in a few weeks, and then you don't have to pay that person anymore. So you're really paying for the work, only the work that you need when you need it. And so it's this concept of an on-demand workforce. And then just the speed factor, like on our platform, it's very common for a company to say, I need a project done. And within 24 hours, they can find somebody to do it, hire them, and start the work, as opposed to, internally mobilizing employees and coming up with the project and so on. So the speed, the cost savings, and the flexibility for companies is huge. And so that's really why you're seeing that the huge growth in freelancing from a company perspective the past several years. On the talent side, you can imagine, I mean, everybody loves flexibility, right? I'm a freelancer. One, I can earn extra income as a side hustle, or maybe I only work 10 months, want to work 10 months out of the year. I want to take November off, December off. I can choose what projects I want to do. I can be ultimately flexible and be very intentional about my projects and the type of things I enjoy. And so that's the number one benefit, is just the flexibility you get as a freelancer.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'll go. Let me go back on the company side though, and I don't know that I have the figures memorized or anything like this, but yeah, there's an overhead as a company owner that I've got to pay on top of a salary I've got when I've got an employee, because those added benefits, whether it's health or retirement or any of those sorts of things, that adds. Is it 20%, 25% on top
Yeah, I
of
mean,
the salary
generally, I
I'm
mean,
paying?
most companies will budget even up to 75% of, in addition to the person's salary as the annual cost.
Wow.
So it's a huge number. And so, just the benefits and thinking about, and you think about the up and down economy. So where, you have a great year or two, and then maybe we have a recession or near a recession, and a company has to lay off workers, or they have to find a way to reduce costs. So in an on-demand workforce where more and more of your work is getting done by freelancers, you have ultimate flexibility. You can still have employees, or full-time employees up to a certain level, but maybe 40-50% of your work is done by freelancers. And when the economy shifts, you don't have to worry about going through the process of workforce reduction, layoffs, and trying to replan your whole organization. It's very nimble. It's very flexible for these companies.
Well, there's a cost factor also for small businesses when you get to a certain threshold of how many employees you have, right? Is that still 100 employees and above now? There's some demands I've got for healthcare, et cetera. And I think that's probably a factor for those company owners as well, right? Because if I've got whatever the number is, 50 employees, but I supplement that with freelancers, then I mitigate some of those risks
Yeah, for
financially.
sure. The tax obligations and just the complexity of managing for small businesses of having a lot of employees. It's just much easier to, and essentially Ripple, my company, we end up taking on a lot of that burden. So we have to keep track of all the taxes, and some of the freelancers end up signing up for benefits with us. So all of that messy stuff where you're kind of taking care of, payroll and keeping everybody happy. Companies don't have to worry about that. We take that on as part of, finding them the right freelancers for the job. And so there's a big benefit of just reduced complexity and all those challenges as well.
So let's talk a little bit more about the impact or the potential benefits to the worker. And yeah, you said, hey, flexibility, but I think that for most of us who have been a full-time employee or in that more traditional structure, probably feels like there's some risk involved. Well, what if I don't fill up all 12 months with contracts or
Yeah.
projects or that sort of thing?
No doubt. So that would be I guess we talked about the pros. I guess the cons would be you just don't have that visibility typically to, like, I know I'm going to be fully busy for the next year, right? So like I said, we do have some long-term assignments, but in general, the freelancers, either they have to be comfortable with not knowing exactly where their paycheck's going to come from, or maybe they're part of their partner or their spouse has a full-time job, and so they can be more flexible and not have as good a visibility. But I will say that with platforms like Ripple that are really designed to provide a steady stream of freelance work to the actual workers and the talent, more and more it does feel like a stable income opportunity where you can say, hey, I'm getting a stream of work. And I'm going to get, 10, 12 gigs this year, or work assignments from Ripple, and I can kind of plan better and I feel good about where I am. But certainly it takes a certain type of person from an emotional mindset, but also a little bit of financial security before you're going to jump off and be a full-time freelancer. Now, the side hustle is different, right? We have a lot of people on our platform, a lot of talent, a lot of freelancers that, have a great full-time job, and they're making good money and they get the benefits of that. And they can also do, work 4 hours a week, 6 hours a week on some extra assignments. So depending upon which type of person you are, the side hustler versus the full-time freelancer, it obviously has a very different feel to it.
Shannon, what are the demographics like for people who are participating here? Is it skew younger, or is it folks who are at the other end of the spectrum on their work career where they're saying, hey, I want to work optional kind of lifestyle? What are you seeing?
Yeah, it does. I think the history and the heritage, I guess the tradition of freelance work definitely skewed more somebody that has at least 10 to 15 years experience. So where they knew they had a certain skill set that they could knock out of the park, and they knew they could get hired for it time and time again, right? And so as somebody right out of college, you really don't have that yet. And so I think that's the traditional freelancer. Now, I will say it's getting younger. And so we've seen even the past 2 or 3 years, the Gen Z generation is the YouTube content creator generation. They don't want to work really for companies. And so they're trying to find ways to get into freelancing very young. And it's possible, especially, if they can go to college or go to a trade school and get a really definitive skill set, and get good at something over a year or two. You can kind of get started as long as you have a really specialized skill set that you can knock it out of the park. But you really need to start with something. A client, when they're looking for a freelancer, they're not looking for a nice, smart person, that's a generalist. They're looking for somebody that can do something really specific, and they can do it really fast. So you really need to have a specific expertise to get started in freelancing.
Shannon, is there a negative on the company side? I mean, perhaps it's, hey, I've got somebody that I really like, but they're not always available because they're a freelancer. Is there any negative on that side for companies?
Yeah, I mean, I think companies are getting, they understand more and more how to use the freelance pool of people versus their full-time employees. And so one of the things that we have on the Ripple platform is companies can set up what we call a talent pool or a private talent cloud of people. Of like, maybe a company says, I love working with these 60 freelancers, and I like working with them consistently. Like, I'll give them another work assignment, 2 months from now. And so they can actually create that pool of people. We call it like a virtual bench, where they can create a virtual bench of their favorite people, and they can just kind of throw an assignment out there and then see who picks it up and who's ready to take it on. And all of these people they kind of know already because they've done work for them previously. So this concept of creating like a personal virtual bench for companies is kind of solving the challenge you're talking about, which is I have this group of people I've worked with, they're freelancers, and I can kind of throw assignments to that bench and see who's ready and available to do it. And that's a really common use case that we're seeing now with companies using freelancers.
So I guess I would describe this as so the front end is the talent that's coming to Ripple, coming to you and saying, hey, I'm looking for freelancers. Is it the back end where are you working with companies to say, hey, would you participate? Would you post jobs or projects here? Is that how that works, that relationship?
Yeah. Most people would flip the back and the front. So I think so we're a marketplace. So on the supply side is the talent and the freelancers. Most people would characterize that as the back end.
Right.
And on the front end is the demand, which is clients. And so just think of any business has a sales role. We are actually selling to two sides. So we're selling the talent and the freelancers to sign up on Ripple. And we're also going out and selling, our clients, companies, to use Ripple, use the platform to post projects and post jobs, and so on. And so we're constantly talking to both sides of the house, both sides of the platform. And it's a lot of fun, though. It's fun to work with the talent, the freelancers, and also just, to work with the companies and kind of bring them together, which is kind of what we're all about.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about that. I know as a young person just getting into a workforce, it was like, oh, networking, that doesn't sound fun. And really, when I hear that now, I go, oh,
Yeah,
it's connecting. And that's what you and Ripple are doing. You're connecting those work opportunities with the talent and the workers.
exactly. Yeah, and if you honestly, there's two things that most freelancers don't really like to do, and they're not really like selling, going out and trying to network and connect and find work. And so we do that for them. And they also don't like collecting the check. They don't like bothering somebody to pay them. And so
Yeah.
we actually do that for them too. We pay them we pay them weekly, regardless of when our clients pay us. And so they know that they're going to find new opportunities to Ripple, and they know that we're going to pay them. And so those two things are super important.
Yeah.
And that way they can just focus on doing their job, you know what I mean? The work they like to do. And so that's at the simplest form from what value we provide talent, you can look at those two things. So
Shannon, we one of our recent episodes, we talked with a small business owner, and just there's that thing as an entrepreneur where you've got the thing you love to do and you'll do it all day long, and then there are those things that you really don't enjoy, but they got to get done. And I totally understand what you're saying about, yeah, if I'm independent or I'm a freelancer, I don't really want to have to go harangue the person that hired me for the job. Hey, I'm still waiting for a check. So that's got to be a big value of what you provide for the
It
work.
is, absolutely, for sure. Yeah, and the fact that we pay weekly, because I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but a lot of the big clients, enterprise companies, I mean, like, Fortune 1000 companies, they pay vendors like every month or two. They're not paying that frequently.
Yeah.
And think of the freelancer, if you're not getting paid, but every couple of months, that's not very good.
I got sweat on my brow.
Yeah,
I'm a little
exactly.
stressed out.
Yeah, so we're actually out there, paying them weekly, like as if they were a full-time employee, and it's definitely a relief. Absolutely.
I think our listeners have probably picked up some of this, but what would your advice be for somebody who's going to they've just dabbled in it, or they haven't sought out this endeavor of being a freelancer? What's your advice? How do they prepare? What do they do to put their best foot forward?
Yeah, I think it's just like I said, it starts with having being really good at least one thing that is in demand in the market. So with what we do, that could be you're a really good writer, maybe a copywriter. You're really good at designing websites. Maybe you're really good software developer at building HTML. You have to be really good at least one thing, and you got to be confident, a lot of self-confidence in yourself that I can do that. And because you're kind of a little bit on your own, right? You're out there as an independent. You're an entrepreneur. You're doing work as a free agent. You're going to have to be confident and comfortable in what you do. So that's the number one thing. And then I think, look, there's plenty of opportunities with platforms like Ripple. Just to get, you don't have to dive 100% into it. You can go build your profile out there, get your skills out there, and start to look at taking on some smallish projects, some smaller stuff, maybe, a few hours here and there. So I would just encourage people to really have a well-defined path on what they're going to get good at, what they know, and then just to get started small and, see how it goes and see if they like it. And I think that's a good start.
Shannon, maybe we wrap up here. It seems like this has been growing. Do you envision that continuing to grow, especially with some of the economic headwinds that we see out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we just did a very exhaustive research on the freelance economy, and 92% of companies said that they would engage more freelancers over the next 24 months. Last year alone, we had a 78% growth in the number of transactions through Ripple with our freelancers. So this is here to stay, and it's here to keep growing for the next number of years. Just the benefits are just too real for companies. Like we talked about, the cost savings, the flexibility, the speed. And so we'll continue to see more and more work turn to freelance. And it's exciting for us. And I think it's great for people too. Just more opportunities to find more ways to get work and to get paid.
Yeah, a lot of people concerned about that and looking for those opportunities. Shannon Denton of Ripple, talking about freelance and the economy. Thanks so much for your time. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Kent. It's been great. Appreciate it.
All right, and everybody else, thanks for joining us for This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition. New episodes come out every Thursday at 9 a.m. You'll find them on Spotify, on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for being with us.